All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off by saying thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us today. I know it's a hectic time for most, especially right now. My name is Jess, and I'm the marketing manager here at Index.io. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, just place them into the chat window and we'll answer them at the end. We'll also be recording this, and a link to the recording will be included in the follow-up email. So I'm sure it's no secret to any of you that the legal world is facing a boatload of challenges with electronic discovery. Challenges like data accessibility, scalability, management, and overwhelming costs. And these challenges are the exact reason Index.io was created. We took the latest technologies and made the most comprehensive e-discovery tool in the industry. So what's so special about us? Well, Index.io is a true do-it-yourself intuitive platform, meaning you get up and running in minutes without ever talking to a sales rep or even utilizing a project manager. We also cut traditional processing times from days to minutes with our auto scale technology. Need to fire up Index.io on the go? No problem. We offer a free mobile iPad app that is easy, intuitive, and secure. You can literally review, code, redact, and organize your e-discovery documents no matter where you are. Index.io is also the only e-discovery solution that provides a daily hosting model. This means you have more predictable billing, easier project management, and no minimum hosting charges. There are also no long-term restricting contracts, no licensing fees, no user fees, and no minimums per month. And now for the main event. Austin, our support representative here at Index.io, is going to lead the discussion today. Austin?
All right, thanks, Jess. Jason, could you go ahead and just start us off with a quick overview of your firm? Give us some background info on you guys.
Sure. Thank you, Austin, for having me on today. I appreciate it. I'm an attorney at Springer and Steinberg. Our law firm is half criminal, half civil. The criminal side is headed up by Harvey Steinberg. The civil side is headed up by Jeff Springer, and I do civil litigation. Within the civil litigation side, we do personal injury, family law, and then kind of everything else. And my practice is largely in the everything else category, although I also do a little bit of personal injury and family law. Mainly the kinds of cases that I bring in are complex commercial or regular business litigation, and then all of the kind of subcategories that go with the kinds of issues that businesses find themselves dealing with: employment, wage, contract, trade secrets, sort of the whole gamut of those sorts of sub-issues that businesses face.
Okay, so kind of a wide-arching firm, and you said your role is a bit more of a catch-all. You do some of those outlier projects. How does that kind of tie into discovery, and how do you and your firm handle discovery issues for your clients?
Well, largely my practice involves more document-intensive issues, although for people who practice personal injury and family law, you'll be wondering, what do I mean by that? The folks who practice in that area tend to get high volumes of similar documents like bank statements or medical records and they have their own internal systems that they use. My practice largely involves either emails or internal documents, primarily emails, that become the highest volume of discovery that we have to deal with. And then my clients themselves have a wide variety of skills and experience when it comes to dealing with tech issues, sending text messages from their phone, downloading and sending over Gmails or Outlook, PST files, that sort of thing. So a lot of the discovery that I deal with is helping clients get through their own production, and then dealing with whatever comes in from the other side, which can also vary widely. Sometimes it's a nice load file that I can put up into Index.io, but a lot of times it might be something like a 500-page single PDF that then is another 500 and another 500 and another 500 that are sort of undifferentiated between different emails, making reviewing them somewhat challenging in particular, trying to break those documents up, or at least identifying the things that need to be dealt with.
So sort of the big data space, as we call it, the electronic data you deal with, it might not always be organized nicely or come in really cleanly, and you just kind of have to sort through what you get. We certainly see a lot of that. What would you say your clients like most about your firm?
We tend to be pretty efficient. We have a lot of experience. Jeff on the civil side has been doing it for 45, maybe 50 years now. And then I'm able to tap into that experience. He's a great mentor. And we're efficient. We have good paralegal support, and certainly doing things like what Indexed.io allows, which is getting through high volumes of discovery without putting 8 hours a day for a week on someone's bill, is definitely appreciated. And finally, we get really good results. Like all firms, we take our losses, but we are often able to have success at trial or get good settlement results. And that is particularly helpful when attorney's fees are an issue. In particular, if we're able to keep our attorney's fees low and the attorney's fees on the other side mount significantly through if they're not being efficient with their document review.
Gotcha. So really streamlining that, it sounds like, and kind of doing everything you can to keep costs down and make sure they get their results as fast as possible. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your experience with Indexed.io. How long have you been working with us?
I think I used you first about 3 years ago. I probably have maybe 1 or 2 cases a year that really have the kind of high volume that require your systems and all of the advantages that it has. And so it first came in because my firm has some pretty standard ways of doing things, particularly, as I said before, dealing with high volume medical records and bank statements and financial records in those practices, but not a lot of experience with the kind of complex litigation that I started doing. And so I needed a way to manage largely high volume emails and then also a fairly large document, Word documents that had lots of versions in them and that sort of thing. And so I turned to Indexed.io because it was sort of the least expensive option for the kind of purgatory type discovery that I had. And I say purgatory meaning it wasn't so huge that it was clear a really sophisticated program was necessary, but it was too big to try to do it manually or go through brute force and just one at a time. And so when I came across it, I think I was referred by Forensic Pursuit. When I came across it, it kind of landed right in that sweet spot of not too small and not too big.
So you've mentioned some of these other services you've worked with. What's your experience been like with other e-discovery software compared to us?
Well, a long time ago, my first e-discovery was a product that LexisNexis had. I don't even remember what it's called anymore. They discontinued it. It was about 10 years ago. And then I was at a very large national litigation firm that had summation in-house and then used relativity as a cloud-based service, both of which are extremely powerful analytical programs, but they're very expensive. And my experience with them was, managing a team of document reviewers, and it was far more than what my practice here needed. And so I was looking, I knew what was out there and what they were capable of doing, and I knew what the cost was. And so I was looking for a program that had the fundamental functionality that really I needed at a much lower cost. And that's how I came to find Indexed.io in comparison to the more expensive programs that were out there.
So prior to finding us, it sounds like your perception of, the e-discovery costs for all these various softwares, that it was a fairly expensive process to run through, right? I don't know what the licensing is like on a lot of these services, but it sounds like they're very cost prohibitive. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I had talked with a couple of vendor sales folks when I was moving into this firm, and they just couldn't quite occupy this space of low cost, middle volume discovery, despite my asking them to come up with, solutions. And the general answer was, look, we'd like to work with you. We'll see if we can, cut back on costs. But their model just never really was able to be efficient enough or cost effective enough to be able to sell it to a client. Clients really struggle seeing the value, even when you give them here's the breakdown of how much time I would spend if I were doing a brute force manual. Here's how much it would cost if you use this program. If that second comparator is still too high and they're not sure that they want something other than what they're used to, especially if they're more sophisticated in litigation, then the sale became too difficult. And so finding Indexed.io, where it was much easier to sort of pitch the efficiency and the cost comparison because that differential was much greater, that's really what I think sold me on this working for a lot of my cases.
Gotcha. And so what was kind of that startup process with us like, as far as billing goes? You mentioned that we're a more affordable option. What's that experience been like for you with the different cases you've worked on?
Well, you offered me two options. I think the first time around, I took the direct bill, which was we gave you our firm credit card, and then you were able to just do all the billing automatically. And we get an invoice, and then we'd authorize it to be paid. You don't automatically bill without us checking in and getting an opportunity to see the invoice first. The other way was I've used it through Forensic Pursuit and other data collection firms around town, both of which I really think are quality firms, and the billing would go through them because they would do the collection, they would do the calling, upload the data, and set up the project, all that for us in Indexed.io. And then you would bill them and they would pass that bill through to us, but without any sort of markup. And both those ways were really convenient and easy.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that was pretty painless. So our main topic today is kind of your user experience in the actual system. So I've got a couple of tickets here that you've submitted throughout our time working together that I want to talk about a bit.
I'm going to interrupt you just briefly. The other firm that I use, because they should get a shout out, is Psyopsis.
Oh yeah, they're another one.
Craig and Kendra Bernard. I've also worked with them on the collection side, and you guys work with them closely as well. And that integration has been really helpful. So I'd mentioned Forensic Pursuit, but I've also used Psyopsis, and I want to give them a shout out as well as being very helpful in integrating all of this. So I apologize. Go on to your question.
No problem at all. It's a great shout out. We like working with both of those companies. Definitely great options if you want a little bit more heavy-handed project management or more of a data collection aspect to your project, and they integrate right in with our system. We've been working with both of them a long time, so it's good to hear that people like working with them too. So this first ticket here, and I'm going to take over the screen share real quick so I can kind of walk through what we did throughout this actually. Your first ticket, you were just trying to do something basic like generate a list of documents you'd already tagged. And so I'd kind of, wrote out some instructions in an email. All you really had to do was come into your tags tab here in a project, click on a tag that you want to bring up. and then run a report here. And reporting is as easy as just clicking download report, run a resource report, and then you get to customize all of your fields. I think you were looking for like a really specific, you just wanted like file names of all of the items that you could quickly download and just have as a reference. So that was really all you had to come in and do. And I think that was like pretty quick, maybe 15 minutes after you'd emailed in, you got some responses from that. And those kind of tickets come in all the time. I know we've had a number of those with you. What's your experience been like as far as response times and getting support feedback quickly?
Actually, I've always been surprised because I'll do a lot of my document review at night when the phone stops ringing, and I'll run into something where I have a question, and so I'll send you a ticket at 6 o'clock at night, and you've responded, much to my sort of feeling bad about intruding on your time. Occasionally it's a little too late and I get a response the next morning, but your turnaround is really, really fast. And I'll just say on that first ticket that you were talking about, what I wanted was a report, which is the output is just an Excel spreadsheet. But I wanted one that had all the names of the actual emails so that I could put together the subject titles of the emails that I was working with sort of in our other system. I knew what all the emails were by name, with where they were in index.io so that I could match them with a Bates number. So what I got was, here's all the subject matters for all those emails. And then I got the Bates numbers because I already knew I wanted to identify those emails by subject matter for purposes of colloquial conversation, and then identify them by Bates number in either deposition reference or in an actual summary judgment motion, I think. And so that's really what made that the most useful, is I could instantly pull up one from the other. And that's just one functionality. I mean, I've had tons of questions along the way, and fewer and fewer as I go, as I learn the system. But you all have walked through both the simplest and the most complex issues.
So our next ticket here was a little bit more involved. This one was a bit of a doozy. I think this was right when you had started working with our export features a bit. And I know our export wizard used to be a little bit more complex. Some of your feedback has actually helped us refine it quite a lot and make it a lot easier to work with. But this first one, you had a number of different confidential tags, some attorney's eyes only tags, and you really wanted to get everything filtered down and get the right set going in your export. Can you talk a little bit about this ticket? I know you ended up reaching out to my boss and he helped you out. And it sounds like we ended up, crediting some of the earlier attempts while you were still kind of learning the system. So what was that process like?
Well, I'd gone through all the documents and tagged them either relevant so that they were going to be produced, relevant and confidential with a confidential brand, or relevant, confidential, and attorney's eyes only. So I had 3 categories of documents that I needed to create. And then I also had them in 2 separate time frames. So my total export was going to be 6 basically separate, I think literally they were like zip files, all of which had slightly different branding and needed to be treated differently because they were attorney's eyes only. And so I was trying to figure out how I could do all of that using the tagging, and to make sure that I had tagged things correctly. And I think the other thing I was sort of struggling with was there were a lot of intermediary steps at the time that weren't as clear in terms of how to get all of this to the very end. And that's one of the things that you guys have improved, has made this much easier. Oh yeah, this field that you've got right there is,
yeah, I wanted to
this is much more user friendly than it was before. And so I was trying to figure out how I can do all of that. And I had done one export and then realized that it didn't come out properly when I was doing my quality control review. And so then I needed to go back and do it again. And the other thing is you charge for exports, but because I'd messed it up, you deleted all those exports, didn't charge me, and it wasn't until I had the final export that the charge came through. So I didn't have to worry about whether or not my mistakes were going to cost either the firm or the client. No, it'd just be the firm any money, and I appreciated that as well, that you were working with me to make sure I got what I wanted, and so I wasn't paying for time or costs that weren't ultimately productive. And I really do like this process is now much easier, I think, to use just from an intuitive perspective.
Yeah, that was certainly the goal with the whole redesign. And I mean, we try not to do too many of those credits. Obviously, you know, we're incurring costs when you kick off these exports. And so we've added a number of checkboxes to make sure people understand, like, hey, this is a billable thing. And we try to do as much, you know, kind of onboarding as possible. Anytime someone gets to the point where they want to export now, you know, we try to set up a screen share like this, walk you through, explain what all the settings mean. We really do want to make it as easy as possible, but of course mistakes do happen. And we don't want people to get frustrated and, you know, spending, you know, excessive costs because they ended up redoing the same thing 3 times. And it just, none of them ended up working for them. So we do try to work with people, and we've also tried to take a lot of that feedback and make it easier so that those problems don't come up in the first place. I think one of the things that came up as a result of your ticket was a confirmation page. And so let me clear out these filters so I can get to the end here. But before, you know, you would go through and you would pick all your settings out, and then you get to the end and you'd really just tell it to run. Or you'd have to go back and click through each page. And now you get to the end, there's a nice summary. It's going to let you know, here's all the warnings we gave you that you accepted. Here's the different file types you selected. Here's what your endorsements are going to look like. And gives you a total file count and everything at the top. So you know exactly what you're getting when you kick it out now. And we really do appreciate, I mean, every company out there says we want to hear from our users, we want to get feedback. But being able to see, you know, those things get integrated and added to the system, I think really adds to the service.
Yeah, I've appreciated watching you evolve, and I think that they're all very user driven, not like techie driven. Like, you know, a lot of programs shove in a lot of really cool stuff on the back end, but the interface, the part that a lawyer needs is, can I quickly look at it, understand what it does when I do this thing, and will that thing do what I want it to do? And that's what I think you've captured really well, is how to make things easy to work with on the front
end. So the last ticket from you that I have here was kind of revolving around like Outlook calendar events, different holidays that you were trying to exclude. You had a lot of kind of superfluous data in your set, you know, Valentine's Day events, Christmas, New Year's, that were kind of cluttering up the rest of the review. And of course, it's hard to filter those out from just a basic like TSD file. A lot of them come in just as like an email message, so it doesn't look any different than the rest of your data. And we got a little creative with how we kind of ended up filtering those out. Can you talk about that a little bit, about kind of what the initial goal was there?
Well, yeah, I was reviewing calendars for years and years, and the person had, you know, added in the all holidays calendar. I had one, I think I did this, not in this case, but in another case, I had that issue. They had also downloaded like all of the NFL games because they were in a fantasy football league. And so I just had these calendars that had all of this data that was completely irrelevant. It was taking up a bunch of time to click through, you know, and you could do that. You can just click and make it go away. But I wanted to automate the process. And you guys hadn't really, at the time, created a specific way of doing that. And so if I remember right, you and I went back and forth using a particular metadata field. And then we would use this search that you've got up here, and I could grab all of those and then just instantly tag them. I don't remember if I used the delete tag or the purge tag. I think I started using purge tag. But I could just get them out of the system and off of the production entirely because they were never going to be relevant. his fantasy football wasn't going to be anything that would help my case. And so it's just nice cleaning up all of the junk out of the system. I would also do something similar to that, by the way, using your post-processing screen, where if you scroll down, there's the email domains, and you can click, when somebody gets 1 million emails to buy something, or all of those Amazon emails, we think you might like this, and none of that's relevant. You can use that post-processing to instantly identify all of those. And it's the same thing. You click on it, it populates it, you type purge, you auto tag purge, and then that's it. And all of those Amazon emails are gone. And you don't have to you don't even have to do a search. You just click on the communication chart is one way, or using this graph this way is another way. And so purging clutter was at least an important part of what I was trying to do.
Yeah, and I know, we did go back and forth a little bit on that. I was looking through the ticket, and I saw I had suggested, being a tech person, I said, well, you can come in, we can look for, everything, create a date and try to format this, maybe everything in December with like a wild card or something in the field. And, kind of went down that route. And I think you jumped right ahead of me and just said, well, hey, what if I go in and say, just show me everything that has a title of Christmas or football. And those were actually getting read into the title metadata based on the type of appointment that it was. And so I thought that was just a good example of how you can kind of be creative with the system. Even if you're not a tech person, you certainly have those options. You can go in, and we even have a great article here about exactly how to format specific date searches and wildcard searches, proximity searches. It'll bring in, if my internet will load here, it has lots of examples that you can just copy paste right into the search bar there for you. But if you're not that type of tech person and you just want to visually go through and drag out fields and create stuff, there's those options as well. Or if you want to come in and read more about the weeds and the coding aspect of how you can do things, you can come in and copy examples and paste them right into the search bar there. So we try to give you, every tool possible to try and make it easy to work with. So we've talked about some tickets here. Do you have a favorite feature or a different aspect of Index.io that you really like working with?
So we've talked about a lot of the ones that I really like, but I was delighted when you added the iPad app. So that way I didn't have to sit in my office at 8 p.m. I could load all the documents up, take my iPad, and do it at home really easily, and click through different batches, and I could see my progress. It was that quickly became a big reason why I wanted to go through, because it wasn't difficult to use, and it was designed for the iPad, so the interface was right. And I just really liked being able to kind of do document review in those dead spaces where I'd have 20 minutes and I didn't want to go out of wherever it was I was in my computer. I could just have my iPad go click, 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 bounce into something else I needed, and weave document review in and out of my day. Made for harder tracking of my time, but that's a different issue.
All right. Well, we're getting to the bottom of the hour here, just about out of time. Is there anything else you want to say, any advice you'd have to people considering our product?
Don't be afraid to use the ask for help feature, the live chat, I think, or the support. Either one of those I would use quite a bit. And that really, for people who are just starting out, you don't want to have a really slow learning curve, and you don't want to have a learning curve that's too steep. But it's sort of inevitable. And so starting with really basic, like here's what it can do, and then hone in on the things you want it to do. And then don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. Use the chat help. Say, hey, quick, how do I do this? You guys turn it around really quickly. Here's what you need to do. Boom, you're done. And instead of wading through tons and tons of help, which are there, and people can do that if they want, but you can really shortcut some of the learning curve part of it by using your support. And you in particular, Austin, I really appreciated how well, even though you're a techie, you actually know how to talk to people as well.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to meet and kind of talk about your experience. Thanks to everybody who came and watched today. We'll send out a link to this recording, so anybody who couldn't make it could come back in and take a look. And we hope to see you guys at our next webinar.